Do you lease beats online to artists? If so, a lot of industry producers think you're crazy. They don't agree with it. Because why would you be online leasing a beat for $24.99 when you could be selling it for $24,000 to a major label artist, getting all the notoriety of working with famous rappers, and not being some nerd on the internet, uploading beats to YouTube, making your little stupid ass thumbnails? Okay, that was harsh. I don't know if I still am, but I was considered at one point one of the top selling producers on BeatStars. I don't know what that entails. They wouldn't tell me, but they sent me an email and I was involved in some kind of focus group or something. So given that I've done both, I've gotten the industry placements and I continue to sell beats online either exclusively or as leases. I think I have a very different perspective from the person who's just doing one or the other 100%. So I saw this video. It's a Grammy winning producer who's making the statement that unlimited beat licenses are the worst. Why are unlimited beat licenses the worst? Well, here's his video. Here's what I think he's trying to say with this video, and let me know what you think. This is from the most recent MEC podcast episode. You can watch the full episode on our new channel. The link is below. Appreciate you tuning in. Of course, I know you're gonna do this anyway, but drop a comment if we missed anything. Thank you.
Unlimited licenses are only good for producers who will never sell the exclusive rights. And it's only good for artists, not producers who plan on selling the exclusive rights. Secondly, you talked about having more publishing down the line or publishing revenue coming in down the line. But how are you going to get this publishing revenue from artists and teams or artist teams who don't even know how to register your song past DistroKid? You also stated that there was a difference between a lease and a license. That's not true, dude. There's a difference between exclusive rights and non-exclusive licenses. Okay, so get that right before you start talking like that. Lastly, record labels are not in business to not own masters. That's what they do, is own masters, and artists willingly sign up for it. Okay, so record labels will never let the producer ever keep the master. Not even the independent record labels want to do that.
So this was a response to a comment, and the person he's responding to in this video said something kind of wild, which was there's a difference between a lease and a license. And I'm like, no, a lease is just a term for a certain kind of license. So he's absolutely right about that. I don't understand why he believes unlimited leases specifically are problematic for producers. They're a higher price point. The artist doesn't have to renew the lease if they surpass a certain amount of streams. So maybe he's saying it's bad because the producer won't get paid more as it generates more revenue. I don't want to get into this, but something like 95% of all songs uploaded by unsigned artists never make it past 1 million streams. So it kind of balances out. It's like a lottery ticket.
I mean, he's also right that people don't register their songs appropriately.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of producers, I'm sure, are missing out on royalties because the beats that get used aren't registered with all of the different organizations to collect their money. I have always felt uncomfortable with like producers that lease beats and then like sell it exclusively, like that same beat that gets sold exclusively. So then what happens to the people that lease the beat up until that point? You know, that can get really messy. You know, I don't care if it's unlimited, not unlimited. I would prefer that producers have like a batch of beats that are available for lease and then like a total different batch of beats that are available for exclusive. I don't like when a beat that is available for lease and then you can also buy the exclusive rights if you pay $2,000 for it or $3,000 for it. I get that most producers are going to continue to do that because they're not going to say no to a bigger budget, especially if they don't have the funds, or aren't doing that well. Somebody comes to you and be like, well, I'll just give you $5,000 for it. And I know you do a different calculation because sometimes those beats are selling really well, like the leases are selling really well, and that one-time payout for an exclusive license doesn't make sense for you because that beat is selling really, really well. But that kind of stuff gets messy. I don't see a problem with selling unlimited licenses. I would just prefer that beat, like I said, there's a bucket of lease beats and then there's, I can either make something exclusive for you or this is my exclusive batch.
When I release a beat, hey, maybe 10 people lease it and then 5 people want to buy the exclusive. I normally talk them out of it and say, it's probably not even worth the price point in the agreements, how it works, at least in the default BeatStars agreements, if you sell a beat exclusively, so let's say you sell 5 leases and then you sell the exclusive rights on the 6th sale to an artist, the first 5 are still valid for the length of their term. But obviously, as we know, Content ID is a mess, but I don't see that as anything unique to beat leasing versus exclusives, because I get Content ID on loops and samples that I own.
Wait. Content ID. Sorry for cutting you off, Payne. Just want to catch that point, though. So for that term, so what is the term?
Well, that depends. Everyone can set their term. So if the term is, say, 5 years or 100,000 streams, once an artist gets 100,000 streams on a non-exclusive license, and whoever owns the exclusive rights to that can say, all right, you're done.
So I don't think artists understand that when they're leasing a beat, because I would assume that an artist leases a beat, uses it, and let's just say, somebody then purchases it exclusively. All right, their term is up. So what do they got to do now? They got to take down their song. They can't monetize it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would be able to negotiate with the artist and the producer now, which is why, the way I look at leasing is like, all right, if the song works, it works. If it doesn't, you didn't waste a bunch of your money on it. You know what I mean? Like, if you get a package of beats, if you get 3 beats for $30 or something, you drop those songs, maybe one of them is your biggest record ever. You would be crazy not to go back to the producer after that and say, all right, we need to figure something out. But if it's sitting there for 5 years and your term is 5 years or your term is 10 years and it's sitting at 500 streams that whole time, you didn't make a cent off of it. Well, thank goodness you only spent $10 on that license.
Once you start having some success, these are the type of things that you find yourself in. Should you not read the terms of and understand how ownership works? Well,
to counter that, I think ultimately what it is a matter of perspective that's at the core of whatever disagreement any of us, including Casey from that video, actually have. So this is just my feeling, because Case Boogie, who's in that video, he has Grammys on his wall. He's got a plaque on his wall. So my assumption here is that he's more in the traditional music industry and not in the kind of newer beat leasing world, even though it's not that new. So his statement that producers who are leasing beats aren't going to get placements, to me, kind of said it all, because a lot of industry producers don't understand that. I didn't either back when I was just focused on the industry and not leasing. I hated leasing back then. So he's basically saying that you're never going to get that beat placed if you're leasing it with unlimited rights, which one isn't true, but it begs the question of that might be the point. So to address a lot of the things that you said, Dame, I had a beat go viral, over 2 million views on YouTube, and not only did it generate about $50,000, maybe more. It was a collab, so it was split. And that was just in leasing. But it added thousands of customers to my email list. It put millions of eyes on my channel. And so it benefited me in a lot of ways. I would never sell that beat exclusively, I don't think. I mean, unless someone paid me some astronomical, asinine amount of money, which they would not, and they should not. I'm looking at that video saying, well, why would I want to lease this or sell a successful beat? That's not my goal with this track. I think in the music industry, capital M, capital I, people look at producers on the internet and they got their noses up because they're like, why would you want to lease a beat? That doesn't make sense. Why don't you want to sell it exclusively? If I had sold that same beat exclusively, I probably would have gotten $10,000 up front, split that with my co-producers, and then that probably would have been it. Because it was a very musical and cinematic sounding beat, not a single. The kind of artist that would have worked on that, they would have had a successful song, but it wouldn't have generated enough for us to recoup to the extent that we'd be getting paid more than the lease. And I actually had one bigger artist. I've had a couple bigger artists reach out about buying the beat. And one of them, I talked to their lawyer, and he went from we would never, ever lease this beat, it needs to be exclusive, to a month later saying, hey, you know what? We are actually open to that. We got it worked out. And then there was another artist that was, maybe as big or bigger. Both of you know who this artist is. I'll tell you off camera. But he reached out and was like, hey, I like that beat. Can I use it or something? And I was like, yeah, just we'll figure it out. Because I was going to do the same thing. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'll be honest with you and say, look, it doesn't benefit you to buy this beat exclusively. Like, you wouldn't have the money that we would need to release it to you exclusively. And it wouldn't even make sense, I don't think, for you to spend that kind of money on it. So let's just work it out. You'll still get it, but I need to disclose all the content ID stuff for you. It shouldn't be a huge problem, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And then he got really upset. But I know his budget was in the hundreds, not even the thousands for beats. So now I'm looking at him like, oh, you got that industry mentality too, where why would I ever turn you down? Because I'm making 1,000 times more than what you offered. And that's a big disconnect in perspective. The music industry thinks we're running around scraping pennies to buy lunch, when in reality, sometimes we're making a lot more than we would on a major placement. And also, you know, because his main thing was a label will never license. I made a video where I explained how Soulja Boy's last hit single, She Make It Clap, was a Leased beat, and it dropped under a major label imprint. That's Warner. We know about Old Town Road. We know about Panda. We know about Houston Old Head. We know about Leave Me Alone. All those beats were on BeatStars. The artist got them, leased them, and then when they blew up, either in the case of Soulja Boy, they negotiated so it remained an unlimited lease, which is wild, but it shows you that the music business is changing, or they just bought it out. You know, the labels, I don't think the labels care that someone has leased that beat, because unfortunately, they can steamroll over whatever situation. They're going to get preference on streaming. No one's going to get confused about it. But the biggest part to me, and I'll share my screen for this, is the non-transferability stipulation. I think it's standard in a lot of agreements, but this is just by default. If you click right here, use of the beat immediately, and this is for one of my leases. I didn't change this language. This is just how it came. In consideration for licensee's payment of the license fee, the producer hereby grants licensee a limited, non-exclusive, non-transferable license. That's incredibly important. I don't want to get too far into the other legal language, but what that basically means, you know, he's right. Casey's right that labels do by and large want ownership of a song. So they wouldn't generally want to take a song that's on a non-exclusive beat. But realistically, the labels want money at the end of the day. And so if there's money, they would rather get some money than none in a lot of cases, especially knowing labels are rigid. We talked about that with Ari Lennox. They don't adapt, but some of them are. So there's non-transferability language that I told you about. Means if the song blows up and a label wants the song, the artist can't just say, okay, cool, it's mine here. What they have to do is they have to go back and negotiate with the artist and the producer. So if one of my beats is recorded to that song blows up, and this has happened before, now it's a new contract because I didn't sell the beat. Even if it's an exclusive, I didn't sell the beat to Interscope. I sold the beat to this rapper. So the rapper has to get paid again through the label, and I have to get paid again through the label. The one final thing I'll say, Dame, because you brought this up about the publishing, when he said, how are you going to get publishing if the artists and their teams don't even know how to register the track? This is the simplest answer ever. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't bring this up. Just because you're a producer doesn't mean you can't register the title with a PRO or a microsync agency. Or get a sync license and negotiate separately for that. That part was confusing to me because I can debunk it so easily. Like if a song drops, those royalties, at least the performance royalties on the underlying composition copyright side, are just sitting there for up to 2 years. So at any time you can claim them if the artist didn't claim them. And if the artist incorrectly registered, you can conflict.
But how do you even know that the song dropped? Like, are you paying attention to when your songs are used? And how do you know that it's out there? Like, what are you doing to know that the song even got released and when?
Well, you can use Beat ID. There are a lot of tools that a producer can use. For the most part, yeah, you don't. And so maybe that's another reason he thinks that leasing is bad for the producer, because it is hard to track.